Hello fellow animators and welcome back to the channel. My name's Fergus, I'm an animator from South Korea, and today we're going to do the walk cycle of a tiger. The rig we're going to use today is from CG Spectrum. I'll link it down in the description box below. It's a really good rig. It has some really simple features but lots of good controls for getting good deformations of the shoulder and the belly and the chest. Hopefully you guys can download it and follow along to get a similar result or the same result to what I have on the screen now. So the first things first, let's go through the rig controls, then let's find some reference, and then we can get into blocking out our contacts and our passing poses. So first things first, let's go through the rig. Now the first thing you'll see is that the rig is pretty empty. There's not that many controllers, which is a good thing I think. Having a really complicated rig is actually sometimes overwhelming, and there's like jiggle bones and there's so many deformations and stuff. They're not really sure what you should be animating. But in this rig you can kind of leave it as default. You don't need to do much hiding. The one thing I would do, just for simplicity, is I would take these knee and also the elbow ones, and I'll set them to, which is the root, so that's 1, 0, 1, 2, so put this to number 2. That's now root, and move these out to the front, just a bit wider, and then take the same thing for the elbows, or the front leg, and put this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, this is going to be 3 now, so put this into 3, this puts it into root as well, and then we can move it back. This means later on when we're doing a cycle, it will follow the rig, but for doing our actual cycle when it's stationary, we actually can do all this movement in the foot, and it won't get affected by the root. So we can animate this separately to the leg, but I think it's a bit easier for me. That one is kind of personal preference though, so you can do what you want. Second thing I want to do is I want to make sure that everything is hidden for a start. So right now you can see that all the joints are still visible, which is a bit misleading. So I want to show none. And then you want to go back in and you want to show a new thing. You want to show NURBS curves, which is the rig, and then you want to show polygons. I think these two things are kind of all you need. Nothing else is really important. Maybe you want to put on motion trails for later on as well. But yeah, so now we can start animating. But the first thing we need to do is get some reference. So look at some reference, then we can start making up. So I went to Getty Images, which is a really good resource for any type of reference really, from humans, creatures, just anything you can think of. Type in tiger running or human playing baseball, and you'll find some sort of reference which you can use in your shots. So I found these two ones, kind of a front one and a side one. I'm going to use the side one here as the main tempo and the timing reference of my shot, but the front one's just to see how the body's kind of moving and where the feet are being placed, just for sort of clarity. Normally you would try and get as close to sort of the perfect profile and side as you can. And I'm sure if I spent 10 minutes looking for something better, I could have done that. But for this shot, I think this side view is so good that it should be okay. Now, the first thing to think about when looking at reference is kind of what's leading the action. And for most creatures, of course, it's going to be the hips. That's the same here with the tiger. But the difference is, of course, compared to a biped, is that you have kind of two sets of hips, I guess you could say. Of course, the chest is one, which is doing the feet or the arms, and then the hips is doing the back feet or the hind legs. So what we can do to make it simpler is kind of imagine that it's just basically two humans. You've got the one human here walking here forward, and then one human here walking forward, and there's like a line between them which is connecting them. And of course they're walking together but in a different tempo. So if we watch this cycle quickly, just play it through one time, there's a pretty clear pattern which you can notice, which is if you look at these back legs, the back legs here, they're going to be leading the action. So as this foot peels off, this foot here is peeling off, it's going to come forward, this leg is kind of still on the ground, it's peeling off as well, and then it's going to plant almost the same position where this front foot was, and then this front foot's going to be kind of kicked forward in a way. So the basic rule is that the back legs are animated like a walk cycle, and the front legs animated about 5 or 6 frames behind that action. And the best tip I ever got was, like I said, the hind legs will kick the front legs forward. So as they come to land, the front leg peels off and goes to the next plant. The second thing to look at from this reference here is how narrow these front feet are. So they're really basically going in a sort of, if you go from the top, this is one foot, this is another foot, and they kind of go round the side of the leg and they plant in a line. So it'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, that kind of motion. The back legs, they're more for support, so they're a bit wider, especially when they're hunting or they're pouncing, they really get like a wide stance. Like in wrestling or any kind of sort of martial art, your foundation is your hips. That's the same for a tiger or any creature. Okay, and then in terms of the ups and down movement, it's the same as a human. Like I said, if you think about this as just basically two separate poses, so this is two separate people, got one person A and then person B. The up pose, down pose, contact poses, and passing poses, they're kind of the same. The difference is, of course, that the hind legs are more like, I guess, an animal, and the front legs, you could argue, are basically the same walk cycle as a human, with the same kind of pattern of the feet. And the very last thing to be aware of is the actual anatomy of a tiger. So you can see here that the position of the leg is pretty similar to a human, but kind of bent 90 degrees forward. So we have, this is the thigh bone, this is the knee bone here, this is now the ankle, and this is the whole foot, basically. So that's kind of how the leg works. And then the same thing for the arms, of course. This is the elbow. So you have the scapula, they've got the forearm, that's the forearm, this is the bicep or the triceps, and this is the whole hand. But the actual anatomy is kind of similar. The last thing to remember, which is a kind of a golden rule, is this bone, and also this bone here, and this bone here, should always be parallel. If you have these kind of bent, like this, and this like that, it will feel really, really broken. And that's one of the main things to keep track of when animating a quadruped, of any type, dogs, cats, especially dogs. But they really want to keep this bone parallel, otherwise it's really, really painful for them. So with this reference sort of done, we can then go into Maya, start animating our shot. So with our reference, we want to have it in Maya or in some sort of video player that can sync with Maya. So I'm going to use the Keyframe Pro plugin, which is a paid thing, but you can just do an image plane and put this into the background of your shot. It's the same effect, but some way that we can scrub Maya's timeline and it can actually see the same change in the video player. So for me, I'm just going to use a plugin. So I take this, and because it's 30 frames per second, we're going to do 24 frames per second. I'm going to put this at 1.25, so it kind of multiplies, kind of kept the same, and I do sync. And now if I scrub Maya, it scrubs the timeline. So simple as that. Right, so this first pose, let's look at this contact. So I'm going to make this pose like I would do with pose-to-pose workflow, at least for the first few poses. Once I get the main kind of speed and shape down, we're then going to start going into layered approach and start doing individual controllers, individual feet placement, and then we can start polishing and splining from there. Right, let's go and do this first pose. If there's some moments where I don't speak, it's going to be sort of a time lapse, but hopefully this makes sense for you guys and you can follow along. So let's work on this first contact. Now, his neck is kind of down, so I'm going to bring this down. Just for now, I'm going to also switch this head into, this is a neck, I want this to be in root as well. So 0, 1, 2, let's put this into 2, so it's facing forward. The head is kind of something I worry about last, but just for now, I'm going to give you something simple. Okay, so I'm not too worried about the main ups and downs of this pose right now. I'm trying to get something vaguely correct. I might scrub, see where it's coming from. Yeah. Actually, I have this contact pose on frame, that frame there. So I'm actually going to offset this, go back to the MVP, but offset by 2 frames. So hopefully now my first frame, yeah, that first frame is kind of the contact now. That's fine for me. Okay, so like I said, these have to be quite narrow, these controllers. So sometimes you can set a value yourself at 20, for example, set 20. And then the other side will be minus 20. You don't have to give us a whole value number, but just maybe for this tutorial, be simple. So minus 20 on the X. Let's work on this shoulder as well. So because the shoulder, if you imagine, is kind of in a straight line down, taking the weight, you're going to rotate this back. Now for this first pass, I'm going to stick to using rotations for the shoulder. Later on, we can start doing translations, but for now, let's stick to rotations because it's easier to control the shoulder using a rotation. Cool, and this is kind of up in the air. Maybe give it a slight rotation because it hasn't quite hit the ground yet. Instead, this shoulder needs to rotate the other way. It's going to rotate forward because it's leaning forward. There we go, and these sort of straight legs. Just like a walk cycle for a contact pose for humans has the straight leg, it's the same thing for a tiger. Let's work on this back leg now. So this foot has kind of just peeled off the ground. Let's bring this back a little bit. We can bring this up. And then this one is going to be going forward, or at least it's been planted on the ground. And I'm going to keep for now the initial wide stance. I might bring this in slightly later if it feels necessary, but for now keep it at the default wide stance. Cool. And this is going to be peeled off, so let's rotate this back. Let's also make a ground plane so we can see what's actually going on with the floor. That will be easier. There we go. And also you can turn on the ambient occlusion, which is this one, to give you like fake shadows. It will make your PC slightly slower, but my PC is fine. Hopefully yours is too. And you can also scrub to see where it's coming from, the motion. Okay, so it's definitely kind of just peeling off. It hasn't really left the ground, but it's basically left the ground. So maybe this little rotation. And this first pass is very rough, so we can definitely change things later. Okay, so now if you think about a walk cycle itself, the first thing to think about is the up and down, right? So I'm just going to make sure that this pose for the contact is about right. I think actually the height is kind of fine. Maybe give this a slight rotation forward, because he's kind of this cycle has got a kind of sort of prowling type mindset, right? He's kind of not on the hunt, but he's definitely sort of prowling with a bit of character. So I think maybe just try and copy this and give it a slight rotation forward. And same for this one. So remember, like a walk cycle for humans, the hips, they're gonna go with the legs, which is the same thing here. So we can take this Y value, the rotation Y, and bring it back, because of course it's going to be dragged back by this leg and leading this front leg. And there's a great way to look at this from the top view. If this hip is going this way, then this hip will go the other way, like that. But for now we can leave this alone because we're going to work on the translations first. That's for later. Okay, right, so let's work out how fast this shot is. So I'm going to zoom forward. I've got to find the second contact. So let's just select everything and then turn off geometry. This one is a good button to click. Now select everything and then I'm going to deselect with control click this box. We can set a key on frame 0. Okay, everything should be keyed now except the master control. And we can then find out where the next contact is. So I know it's not 360. Let's go back to 50 to start with and then make it easier. So 50, so we've got contact on 15, let's do contact on 30. There we go, that's perfect. So a 30 frame cycle at 24 FPS. So we can just, as I said, we already copied this pose. Let's make the opposite pose now. So there are plugins to do this quickly, but I'm going to use no plugins today. Let's just drag this forward, do the opposite pose. So bring this one forward, bring this one back, and of course the shoulders need to rotate opposite as well. Bring this one there. And we're going to do a stationary cycle today, by the way, stationary, no moving forward. I found that while they're also easier to make, they're also, I think, more useful when animating the shots. So I'm going to stick to doing a stationary cycle. I would recommend though, well, after you master doing the treadmill cycle, do try a more walking forward cycle as well, because it's a good skill to have. Okay, so then this is going to be the opposite. This is going to be dragged back, kind of off the ground. And then you can drag this forward. And then maybe you can zero out. So translation Y is going to be 0 because it's on the ground. Rotation X is going to be 0 because it's obviously not going anywhere. And for these two we can leave the same. Maybe I should put this to 0 as well. It should be 0. Am I rotating in? Yeah, well, cool. There we go. It might be a bit too wide, but we can fix that later, as I said. And then let's just for now, let's also do this rotation opposite as well. Okay, we are going to do rotations later, as I said. I'm doing a layered approach to this assignment. Okay, let's just quickly play this and see what it looks like with just the contacts in, to see what happens. Okay, so the timing actually feels okay. Yeah, okay, cool. Now the way I want to do this now is I want to get my sort of tempo of the feet down. I'm not going to polish the feet or even spline the feet, but I want to get the when they touch the ground, each of the contacts for each forepaw, I want to lock that down so I know exactly when they're hitting the sort of down poses and the up poses, and then I can start working on these chests afterwards. So let's do very rough pass. So let's start with the left leg, the left foot. Sorry, no, left arm. There we go. So right now it's fully straight. and it's still contacting the ground. Let's bring this back. Frame 4, let's bring this back still. You can even rotate this up a little bit. Bring this down so it's touching the ground, and then go to the curl, and then you can rotate this back a little bit. And also maybe use ball lift or yeah, ball lift. There we go, that one. So we get this nice pose. But you can see here it's still got a very straight arm. Look at this in. It's still got a very straight arm. So you want to keep that in your shot. So we've got to bring this back a bit more. Again, we are going to be changing these with the hips when we start animating them, but for now we're just getting the main shapes in. And for now, let's also leave the shoulder, because I think we can do the shoulder towards the end of this blocking pass. I think that's okay for now. I'm just thinking about the context. All I'm doing is just the context. Cool, and this is the passing pose. Let's go to frame 8. Maybe actually frame... Yeah, go to frame 8 and let's do a passing pose. So I have another piece of reference here, which is basically showing the feet, how they work. So you can see how basically the way the cat moves their feet, they kind of flick through with their fingers or the tips of their paws, kind of scraping the inner leg of the ankle, and like a cup. So they don't just go like this, they kind of go like this, which is quite important to capture because otherwise it won't feel very real. So we're not going to have it actually intersecting the skin, of course, that'd be a bit strange. But let's just try and get this main shape in by also using the curl again to get more of a curl in the fingers. And we can basically rotate this way, bring it in. And for now, I think that's fine. Again, we are going to be changing these later. So look at this now. Okay. Okay, so this pose, we can tell. Let's go back to my other video. 1 second, I'll choose the other video. So thinking about this now, this contact pose is a bit too weak. I think it needs to be a bit further forward, because you still want to have this kind of strong sort of straight leg or straight arm to keep this power. So look at this now. Okay, I think for now, just to get the tempo down, that's probably fine. Again, we can change this later. Maybe bring this back a little bit more. We can change later. There you go. Cool. Okay, let's work on the next set of frames. So from 15. Yeah, so here it basically just leaves those on the ground. So what we can do, we can take this frame 0, middle mouse and middle mouse drag all the way to the end, frame 30, and hit S. So now this key and this key are the same. This key, and this key, at least for the feet, are the same. Okay, let's work on the other foot now, the front hand. This is kind of off the ground, just by a tiny bit, but I'm reaching forward. But I think actually we can work on this even more. We can push this further forward. You can work on the shoulder later as well. About there. And it's going to basically contact instantly. So let's put this now at frame 1. So we say 1 frame change. Let's put this back to 0. Rotation also to 0. So these 2 to 0. And I think also, just for the sake of clarity, put these 2 to 0 as well. Just for now. So that's our pose. And then we've got to walk forward. Cool. Still on the ground. And here's the peel off at frame 18. So at frame 18, let's bring this back a bit more. Maybe also rotate this down. And then we have to push it up to get the toes out the ground. And then we can use the curl trick again. Like that. And maybe ball tilt. Sorry, ball lift, sorry. Bring it forward. I try to use as few controllers as possible and keep it simple, but getting a nice pose is difficult. Sadly, this rig, and most rigs actually, don't have the proper deformations for the ball socket, because really this part of the body, if I see my mouse, the wrist, or maybe it's the knuckles, sorry, they really lead the motion, they kind of peel off like this, but this rig and most rigs I've used don't have the deformations to do that. So you have to kind of just do what you can using the ball lift and stuff. But at least having a straight leg is quite important. So I think in this pose as well, we can bring this back a little bit more. Again, the shoulder will help fix these problems with the overextending leg. So look at this now. It's the same problem again. Frame 30 is not the same as frame 0. So there's middle mouse drag, frame 0 all the way to 30. Click S. So look. There we go. It looks a bit better now. Yeah, but awesome. Okay, so I think the front legs, the tempo of it's actually looking okay. Let's look at the back legs now. So let's look on this one here, the right side foot. So this is the one furthest from the camera. So it's planted, and it's going to peel off about there. So right frame 12, let's actually lock this down. So right now it's rotating because of the frame 15 pose. It's going towards it. Let's put this again to 0, and also rotation X to 0. And anything else we can leave the same. And let's just work out exactly where we can get this to not pop. It's about there. I think, let's have a look again at the reference. Yeah, it's about there, I think. This is also going to be changed again with the hips, but for now we can leave it. I actually think we can bring this back further. About there, yeah. Again, it is currently hyperextended, but when we fix the hips, it will change. So we'll leave it for now. So I think for 15, actually, you can see here it's already quite bent. So I actually might adjust this pose to be a bit further forward. And maybe rotate it back a little bit. Again, remember I said earlier about having these lines parallel. So this line here, this one in the upper thigh, and this wrist or ankle joint also upper thigh. So again, we can change this, I think, on frame. No, that's fine for now. Okay, and then where's the planting? It plants there, frame 25. So frame 25 is bring it forward, get the right angle. Let's put it down to 0 and to 0. There we go. That's now on the right pose. And don't worry about these pops. Again, like I said, we're going to fix these later. Maybe actually this frame could be frame 11. So I'm going to shift click, make sure everything's cleared, everything's selected, or everything's unselected, sorry. And shift click to frame 12, bring back one frame. So look at the skin. Yeah, okay, it's better for now. Okay, cool. Let's work on the last leg, which is the similar motion but just offset again. Okay, so this is already on the ground. Find the plant. Plant frame 10. Frame 10. So bring this forward. Frame 10. Again, 0, 0. You know the drill by now. I think that's also quite a straight sort of leg like that, right? So let's bring this even further forward under the belly to really make this work. Cool, make this 0 as well for the X just to make it simple. And where does it stay? Stays on the ground. Basically, till frame 27 is on the ground. So that's also per set key here, 0 and 0 on these two keys. Let's lock down the shape. And yeah, I think that's there for now. Okay, so already you can see how basically this front leg, so this back leg, sorry, as it picks off, it's going to reach towards this part of the ground, and as it kind of comes in, the front leg kicks off as well. So I think at this stage we can call this, I guess, the leg pass is done. Let's move on to doing some layered stuff in part 2 with the chest and the IK chest and hips. Okay, but before we move on, please do leave a comment down below and like this video. Part 2 will be here probably within the next 24 hours, if not less, so please stick around and wait for that to come up. But yeah, please do like the video and I'll see you guys in part 2. Thank you.